And they got absolutely murdered, I think, that one year. So it's one of those things where one game does not define a season, but you definitely need to be improved because you're not beating Sam Houston playing like that.
Welcome to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kylor Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation. Trying to do my best Matt impression. Oofda. He is being a very good boy in Vegas. He's doing a fantasy NFL chat where he had a sign that says he sucks at fantasy football.
Yeah, I heard he is the number one pick.
Yeah, my guess is Matt, he only focuses on NDSU football and the Big Sky, the Missouri Valley, the CA, all of us FCS conferences because he loves us. But he sucks at the NFL, just like his team, the Dallas Cowboys. And I can say that because my wife is gone still for the last 2 weeks. She's a Cowboys fan. So I can say it. I'm going to say it again. Cowboys suck. I don't have to sleep on the couch.
My brother's a Cowboys fan.
Well,
Cowboys
they suck. So
Cowboys still suck.
Yeah, exactly. But we're here with Jamie. We're here with Chris. So we did bring in a heavy hitter. Some people may know Chris Hammond as the guy who is literally on every single FCS podcast from here to Nantucket. So, it's good to be back. It's good to be chatting and doing our normal type of show where it's only the fans asking questions and we are answering them to the best of our biased abilities. And then we'll just see where the discussion leads us. But, Chris Hammond, how you doing today? I know we've chatted for about 4 hours on other podcasts today. So how you doing, sir?
Yeah, this is podcast 5 of 5, but I will say this is the one I'm most excited for.
And you've worn a different hat every podcast.
I keep trying to make people think I haven't just sat at my computer for 6 hours today, even in a new shirt. Because it is time. If you hate it, block out the NDSU. But it is time to follow us to Frisco, as in this
Perfect.
show. The little football Chris show I do, I always refer to this show as the big boy show or the big kid show. So it's just kind of cool, when you're the kid and you get to sit at the table for the first time. I know I've been on
even
before,
brought up a booster seat.
But it's like, it's exactly. It's always fun when somebody's not at the big kids table and the parents are like, all right, we'll let the little kid show sit at the big kids table.
Hey, well, we are glad to have you. And then, of course, we got the number one analyst in the nation, Jamie Williams, who's looking pretty good matching that purple and white. Two different teams, of course. We got the UCA Bears and then the FBS Dukies. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm all right. Just ready for another week to go by so I can get up to a football game and just be that first FBS JMU game. Pretty exciting stuff. So
yeah.
Ready to go. Speaking of ready to go, y'all ready for the Big 7?
Nope, because I want to chat with you one quick second.
Killer's not done yet. Let's go.
I want to ask you one question because you are fresh, new FBS. Is there any games you're going to this year, not at, James Madison, but is there any Sunbelt away games that you're looking forward to going to?
I was hoping to go to App State. Boone is one of those places I would love to go. I don't think I'm going to make it this year. So maybe in 2 years. I probably will catch a William & Mary game somewhere, maybe against Rhode Island. So I've been trying to get the hacks to go in there. Sean says I'm bullying him, but he's like 6 inches taller than me and all that stuff. So I don't know how hard I can bully Anderson, but maybe I could bully Joe a little bit. We're about the same size.
I think you guys should start live producer from the Little Kid Show here. Going forward for the season, you should start like an FBS swear jar. Every time Jamie talks about the FBS, it's like $1 towards the Frisco Fund or something. Because there's our FBS talk, right? FCS Fans Nation.
But am I allowed to continue to ask him FBS questions? So
that's fair. That's on you. Yeah. Okay.
So it's only
Jamie,
if I do
you're okay with that? Yeah.
Whatever.
Fair enough.
And to be fair, it's probably going to end up being like $2.
Well, I'm going to buy.
You won't slip up much.
Hey, I'm going to buy you guys beer in Frisco anyway, so you're good.
Exactly. All right. Well, that being said, do your video, Jamie.
The top 7 FCS topics of the week. This is the Big 7.
All right, perfect. So we have our 7 major questions typically this is picked by Matthew Frazee on, is there multiple, questions around the same type of topic or just the ones we really want to answer? I mean, we'll just be honest. But the number one from Adam Willie, what's everyone's overall thoughts on week 0? Let's take it with, the newbie Chris, and then we'll go Jamie, and then, we'll end with my opinion on this one. But how do you think, football's finally back, Chris? And I know you and I have talked about it for 4 hours, but football's finally back. You were saying it was surreal on another podcast, but what are the true thoughts of week 0?
Well, Kylor, you nailed it right there. We have talked for 4 to 5 hours today about college football because college football is back. We wouldn't be doing that if college football wasn't back. So it is a happenstance of our current situation in which I am pleasantly willing to waste my first or one of my last Sundays of summer talking about college football because I live for fall. Fall is my favorite season. This is just turning that page. I wait from after 4th of July. The only thing I care about is kickoff. So I'm happy it's back. I touched on the Friday night FCS thing. I would like to see week 0 move into, and I think this especially shows it, especially after the SFA Jack State snoozer in the second half. I would like to see more top tier FBS games be week 0. I'd like to see the BS games maybe weaseled out a bit. I think the perfect week 0 would be you have that game like they did this year, a couple teams in Ireland or the UK, make that a thing. I think they're trying to make it a series, so that's good. That can be the morning game. Then I think you do a really good job and you have the MEAC SWAC challenge as the midday 3 p.m. kickoff, and then you do an FCS after dark kind of kickoff, and those are your 3 week 0 games. I think it's a more manageable thing. We would still get 4 FCS games, which still gives us a bunch of national spotlight. And then I think you do get a fun FBS game that even people that aren't huge FBS people would watch. Because I know I wanted to watch more Nebraska Northwestern, but when Austin Peay's hanging with Western Kentucky, I feel obligated because I'm on these shows to pay attention to Austin Peay. So I watched almost 0 of the Nebraska Northwestern game, and I don't mind because Austin Peay, Western Kentucky was so much fun to go. But I don't like how it's the first week of the season, and I still have to play like what network is what on and try to get P&P. And I think if I made a suggestion, it'd be FBS weird neutral site game, MEAC SWAC challenge, and then a fun North Dakota State versus Sam Houston, or I guess they're leaving, whatever, Montana versus Kennesaw State, something like that. I think would be fun every week.
I mean, I do think this SFA versus Jacksonville State was kind of that game. I mean, you have an up-and-coming program, and then Jacksonville State's kind of been that historic program in the last 10 years. So I think that is kind of the game. It just didn't work out that way. But Jamie Williams, what's your thoughts before I give my last kind of opinions?
Yeah, I hate that there was so much weather delay in the MEAC SWAC challenge game because that actually wound up being a really good game. Alabama State wound up pulling it out, winning by 10. I was really excited watching Austin Peay hang with Western Kentucky, which I thought they might. I actually thought they could have given them a shot to win that game just because of the turnover in Western Kentucky's offense, and hell, just the energy of Austin Peay's coach alone was enough to get you amped up to think they had a shot because, sometimes the players take on the personality of their coach, and it seemed like they did. Dre McCray is going to be a guy to watch for Austin Peay this year. So that was not a fluke. He's an excellent player, and their running back is actually Josh Samuel, a transfer from Jacksonville State, transitioning into a Jacksonville State team that looked really good overall. Overcame a couple early turnovers to still lead at the half, despite the fact that I think we all said Zion Webb, not great, but he got the ball in the end zone. So he did his job. I know people were calling for Aaron McLaughlin a lot earlier, but
he
Rich Rod had the team ready.
Why not?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, Zion really utilized his legs, which was kind of fun to see. This is, under the new Rich Rod, where if maybe something's not working, you actually have a plan and can adapt. This may be the future of Jacksonville State, where they're an adaptable team. My biggest takeaways, because you guys already touched base, there's a lot of good games at the FCS level, like a lot of competitive ones. But then the main showcase one, it ended up not being a great game. 2 potential caliber, top 25 caliber teams, programs. So it had all the potential for it. It just didn't kind of work out. My one big takeaway is, because I agree with Chris, I wish it was more FCS focused, like it was 5 years ago. But I really want the kickoff game out of crap hole Montgomery. And I don't mean to say that if anyone lives in Montgomery, I'm sure it's a nice place. But for a neutral site game at the FCS level, it looks so bad. This year, there was 5,000 reported in a 25,000 plus seat stadium. Last year, 2,000 reported. Their good years are 12,000, and it's only because it's Jacksonville State on the home side, which the TV doesn't show. So you still have a half-empty stadium. I loved it before Alabama took the reins, where the Crampton Bowl kind of hosts it now. I loved it when it was Sam Houston at Eastern Washington. Sure, small stadium, but there was over 10,000 kids in an 8,600 seat stadium. The year after, it was North Dakota State at Montana. Over capacity, there was 26,000 kids in a 25,000 seat stadium. Then it was Charleston Southern, I believe, at North Dakota State, where they oversold it by another 500 compared to capacity. There's something beautiful about having a showcase FCS game where you're actually showcasing a good FCS environment. You don't need the best stadiums to have a fantastic environment, but we're not getting it at the Crampton Bowl. It is really hard to ask anyone who, if you don't have like a lot of history with each other, hey, go to this neutral site game in a non-destination town, where if you're making any plans to travel in that a conference, if you're an FCS, you're probably wanting to go to the FBS matchup that you get to. Or you're probably planning for like those type of away games, not because you're playing, another potential top 25 FCS team at a neutral site. I really wish they get rid of the neutral sites because it does not look good on TV. It looks pathetic. It's quiet. There's no atmosphere. You can have these two good teams. If it was at SFA or if it was at Jacksonville State, the crowd would have been electric. Like, it wouldn't have been 5,000 fans. If it was at Jackson State, you would have saw probably 15,000 fans, which it's not a sellout, but it looks a lot better on TV. If it was at SFA, you probably could have had 8,000, 10,000 fans for this kickoff game on nationally televised TV. But instead, it's a neutral site game. I really hate that aspect of this, and I wish they would stop bidding to host this, and I wish it would go to top-tier teams like Chris was mentioning, but at that top-tier team's home. That is my rant. So any other thoughts, questions, rebuttals? Do you think I'm crazy?
No, I agree. And my only thing would be like, next time, because Idaho plays week 0 here in like 2 years against Oregon. I don't get how a school just picks week 0. Like, it shouldn't be something that schools are just allowed to do.
Yeah.
It should have to be the NCAA allows the SWAC challenge, allows that weird funky game. And then, at the FBS level, and then there is an FCS game. Like, I don't get how schools can just decide, because Idaho was originally like week 3, and all of a sudden Oregon just decided we were going to play at week 0.
Yeah,
I don't think that should be allowed. Like, how did UNLV get a week 0 game? Like, that's like the NCAA needs to like fix that. It needs to be like an invite only, 3 games, 6 teams, all day affair, and everybody's watching all 6 teams.
Totally agree. This next question, I believe, was by Dustin. We did not put notes in here, but I'm pretty sure it was by Dustin. It's kind of a trolling question, but let's dive into it. So before I ask, we're going to go Jamie, then myself, then Chris to finalize it. But according to social media, Stephen F. Austin should just hang it up, not even attempt to salvage their season after yesterday's games. Thoughts on, can SFA salvage their season? Jamie, what's kind of your thoughts? And is this Dustin? I'm pretty sure this is Mr. Rev himself.
Oh, yeah. Our Mysterio producer's got it going on the bottom of the screen, Kyler.
Oh, perfect, because it wasn't in our notes here.
Yeah, so I just added that. Yeah, it was definitely Dustin. Of course, they can salvage their season, but looking as bad as they did, there's a little less margin for error. I mean, Alcorn State, that they better win that game. That's a road game. Then they play Louisiana Tech. That's an FBS game. Warner, whoever the hell that is, and then Sam Houston. After that, it eases up, but they better get going fast because they looked bad on both sides of the ball overall. Trey Self, if he looked for anybody other than Xavier Gibson, show it to me, because I swear I didn't see it. I know he did because other people had receptions, but he was forcing the ball to Gibson all day. Seemed like he was panicked a little bit, which shocked me. But honestly, it looks like the SFA we saw every year except for last year. So they better bounce back, and they could easily start this season 2-4 and then be scrambling at the end. But luckily, they're in a a WAC that outside of Sam Houston, not the strongest conference.
No, but they're also sharing bids with the Ace Sun, which makes it a little interesting.
Via power ranking.
Yeah, you could end up winning like the WAC from playoff eligible teams and still not have a shot at the playoffs, which is kind of interesting. There's no automatic berth for a WAC team. They're sharing it. So my thoughts was I thought SFA was going to lose to begin with. I was very vocal that I think they have 3 losses on the season. A lot of people thought I was on drugs. Now, the only difference is I did not think it was going to look the way it did. They did not look prepared. They looked really good in the first few minutes, right? Because Jacksonville State was making errors. Other than that, the defense looked really bad. This did not look like a top 10 defense that we were thinking was coming in. They couldn't stop anything. Their offense, they were dropping balls. They were missing very open wide receivers. The play calling was lackluster. There were so many portions of this game that I watched it and went, ooh, yes, I didn't think SFA was a semifinals caliber team. I did not think they were going to go undefeated or just lose to, Sam Houston like some other people thought. I did not think they looked this bad. So maybe it's just week 1. Maybe it's some of the hiccups. At least now you get to go back to the drawing board, see what, wasn't working out very well for you. But I mean, you still have the full season. It's week 1 out of 10 weeks. Top teams have bad weeks. Remember when North Dakota State lost to Indiana State one year and still won a national title, right? And they got absolutely murdered, I think, that one year. So it's one of those things where one game does not define a season, but you definitely need to be improved because you're not beating Sam Houston playing like that. You're not beating LA Tech, who was a very bad FBS team last year. You like Jamie said, you're going to have a tough time beating Alcorn State if you play like that. If you play like that and show up, Alcorn State's going to take you to the woodshed. So it's interesting. I think they are going to be better than what they showed this last week. But yeah, now it's time to put up or shut up. But you still have 10 more weeks.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is like you were insinuating, don't overreact on one game, but put it in your memory bank because that wasn't a good performance, and there's plenty of time to bounce back. And I'll say the same thing for any of your teams playing this week. Don't overreact, good or bad. We'll get to a Mercer question later. Don't overreact on how much Mercer destroyed Morehead State. I mean, 1 is Morehead State. 2, it's week 1. Now, you can take some things away from it, good and bad, both ways. But don't overreact up or down on your first game and say this is how the season's going to go because it doesn't feel like it, but it's kind of a long season. What do you think, Chris?
You guys nailed it, so I'm just going to keep it short. I think a lot of people have forgotten JSU is transitioning to the FBS. So once again, I think people forget this is a team that has more scholarships than Stephen F. Austin. Yeah, we thought that Rich Rod was being weird and whatever, and so the spread swung wildly in SFA's favor. But maybe that's because we all overreacted to something that wasn't that big of a deal. We, as in the betting population, and JSU was the favorite like they originally were when the spread came out. I do think the one thing is exactly don't overreact. I think this is a classic case of a team that's not typically been good getting caught reading their press clippings. I think Stephen F. Austin and saw that they became the favorite. They are preseason top 15. They're supposed to be this team that's going to run the WAC. And you know what? They caught a team who traditionally is a good team, a power team, and they punched them in the teeth and said, cool your jets there, guys. We're doing this as a favor to you because we'd rather do it to you week 1 when you've got time to move past it. And while it might get viewed as quasi an FBS loss instead of an FCS loss, so you can run through your FCS slate and regain this confidence that you had, but you needed a reality check. It's better to come week 0 than week 6, right? So that's my thing. I think they just got caught reading their press clippings, thought they were better than they were.
Well, the media didn't help, right?
No.
Everyone was putting them on this pedestal, and right when all the polls came out, Dustin said, "I'm not used to this. I don't, please stop." Right? There was a Twitter comment where he said something similar, and people have to remember, SFA actually lost to every good team they played last year. They were close, competitive games, but Incarnate Word, that was a playoff team. It was a very close game. SFA lost. SFA lost to Sam Houston when Sam Houston was down without a quarterback, right? and it was a close competitive game, but SFA still lost. And now all of a sudden we're like, they're easily a top 10 team when they didn't make it out of the first round against a not top 15 program. So it's one of those things. I almost feel a little bit bad. The media probably push this narrative that they're world beaters when they still have to prove it. I still think they're ahead of schedule than what they probably should be. This year is probably what I thought they'd be last year. And I still think last year's team we're getting this year. I think it's more of the same. But overall, you still have, 10 more weeks. It's week 1. It is what it is. Ugly loss. Get back to the drawing board, improve, and hopefully you can, maybe upset Sam Houston or at least win the games you're supposed to win. Okay. Now, the next question, Amos. It's not Amos, Matt Frazee. Oofda. Stop it. So Amos.
You got to give him a break, though. He's from North Dakota. He doesn't know how to pronounce these southern names.
And I've been calling him Amos the whole time.
Well, you're from Washington. I'm from Virginia. It's Amos. Famous Amos cookies.
Well, I have a really good friend whose name is Amos. So I was just, it's Amos. But I'm blaming Matt instead of taking the blame and put it on me because it's more fun to blame a kid who's having a good life in Vegas and we're just stuck here. But so here is kind of his question. Can FAMU save its season after its compliance debacle? Jamie, I actually want to hear from you again. So first, if people aren't aware of this compliance debacle, will you kind of show or explain what went on just hours in, a day before the game, because I don't think anyone was expecting this, and then answer his question after.
Yeah, Friday, I saw some tweets come around that all of a sudden that FAMU had some potential compliance issues, grades, transfer status, 20-plus players. At first I said 40-some players, and I jaw dropped, but 20, being around 20. And at one point, the rest of the eligible players were refusing to get on the bus. So it was a question of if the game would even be played. Cooler heads prevailed, but they were missing a lot of starters, including reigning Buck Buchanan winner Isaiah Land.
Yeah,
and that was tough. But to start to answer the question, they hung with North Carolina for a while.
They played extremely good considering the circumstances.
Yeah, they played well. I mean, they wound up losing 56-24, but
covered the spread. Good teams win, great teams cover.
There you go. Vegas wins there. But as long as they can get these guys eligible over the next few weeks for whatever reason, I think the Rattlers would be in okay shape because they hung. They showed some heart, and Willie Simmons is a hell of a coach. Don't forget that. That man can coach a football team, and he showed it. That team was ready to play no matter what. Next man up, next man up. They were ready to go, and sure, that, obviously FBS versus FCS depth to start when you're down 20 guys, including 3 or 4 key starters, it's going to get to you. But I was impressed by what FAMU did, and I can still see them making a little bit of noise.
Yeah, I got to give them a little bit of credit because when Chris bet on this game before even the whole compliance issues came on, I called him an idiot. I said, no way in hell they're covering the spread with all the starters being there. Because
it was like 34.5.
Yeah, and I was like,
all that news came out.
I was like, Chris, you're such an idiot. I was like, they couldn't score against Southeastern Louisiana's first and second stringers last year. They just couldn't score. They couldn't move the ball. But guess what? I am more than comfortable saying when I'm wrong. They were down 40 scholarships compared to North Carolina, right? Because the 20 that didn't show up, and then they're already at a 20 deficit. They hung in about as good as any other team could. It wasn't that long ago when James Madison won a national title and North Carolina shellacked them, but like the same score, right? It was almost identical. The same type of stuff. So Florida A&M, man, I hope you can figure out this compliance issue. I don't know really what's the root cause of this, if it's just being understaffed, because I know there's some back and forth on Twitter. I guess there's only one person who runs the compliance for the whole athletic department. I don't know if that's different on a lot of FCS teams. I really don't know that aspect of the university. But you got to figure it out, right? You should know prior to a day before going into a game. But I hope they figure it out because it was fun watching them. I mean,
yeah.
A lot of heart, like Jamie said. They did not give up. They fought. They didn't have a lot of their starters. They didn't have Isaiah Land, their best player on the team. And I mean, for what it's worth, in my opinion, they went toe-to-toe with North Carolina. Yes, the score doesn't show it, but for what it's worth, what I was expecting of them, they outperformed what they were supposed to do. And if they can get healthy, if they can get all their compliance in order by the Jackson State game, we got another good game coming this year. Chris, what's your thought process?
I was just going to say, like, look, I'm not saying this person needs to get fired or whatever, but I'm like, they're getting paid $675,000, something like that, to go play North Carolina. Like, I don't care if there's one person in the athletic department. They need to know who's eligible to play the $675,000 game before 48 hours before kickoff. Like, we talked about, I think the only reason that got twice Cooper Kupp has gone down today.
3 now.
We were talking about it is like the only reason this game got played was because the rest of their Olympic sports are dependent on this payday. Football team would have been fine. Like, they had to go and they had to collect that paycheck, because if they don't, they have their own serious like issues that had to arise. So yes, I'm glad they went. They did hang. They surprised me. I did end up doubling down and betting double the money I bet originally on them to get smoked by North Carolina. So I actually ended up losing more money than had I just stuck with the original bet. But, you know, that's life sometimes. And that's some of the happiest money I will lose, because I like seeing a Florida A&M team that actually got national attention on game day about how short-staffed or short team they were, being able to hang with North Carolina, who is led by a legendary coach in Mac Brown.
7 offensive linemen eligible for the game total.
And they lost 2 of them.
7.
2 of them had to go to the locker room. They were down to only having 1 backup.
That's like my rec hockey league where we have 7 guys show up and 2 people can't breathe anymore, and I'm usually one of them. But
lining up, finding out their fittest defensive linemen and being like, "Hey, you might need to start blocking, bud." Like,
what they did on
very impressed by them, but from a compliance thing, that's unacceptable. Like, I'm
very unacceptable.
Pick favorites or whatever, Title IX, all that stuff. But like, your college football program in the fall takes precedence. Figure out the volleyball, the golf, the whatever afterwards. Like, your football team needs to be eligible week 1
for sure. But man, don't want to only talk about the negative. I think I respect the crap out of what they were able to do on Saturday.
Yep.
Facts. There's no denying
crap out of it. That's
not denying that.
That is
get the compliance person help or find a new compliance person. Whatever the issue was, that needs to get resolved.
Yep. So
there's nothing to say that it gets resolved before their week 1 game. Right. Like, we don't know. Sure. We don't know what the issue is because there's no communication. Well, and I'm under the impression this is all probably kids that didn't make grades in the spring and were told to take summer school classes, and they failed those classes, which goes to show that nobody was checking in or what. Like, it's just every way you slice it, there's no way this should happen in 2022 when everything is digital, and we just went through 2020 where everything was virtual. Yeah. Like, you can't have compliance issues going into the first week of the season.
For sure.
You just can't.
Now, before we move to the next question, I just want a quick hitter from each one of you. If they can figure out their compliance, they play Jackson State, right? How do you think that game's going to go?
Jackson State 21.
Jackson
by
State
21?
Close. Like, I say Jackson State close, kind of like last year. I know they played it in a monsoon, but still close, still Jackson State.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited for that game, especially if FAMU can really, figure out that compliance, because if they're fully healthy there, that's going to be a fun game to watch. Okay, cool. This is by Peter Hagen. Which FBS FCS matchups are the most winnable, and how many FBS wins can we pull off? So before we go over how many FCS wins do you think we can pull off, let's have each one of us pick 2 games that we think there's a potential chance. So Chris, I'm going to go with you first. For the FBS FCS matchups, what are some games you think they have a shot at?
Cool. Thank you for giving me the first one. North Dakota State is going to beat Arizona.
Okay, solid.
That was nice.
Way to go out on the limb there, Hammond.
Well, I didn't see this question, so I didn't prep any. Other ones, I will go. You know what? Screw it. Kylor and I were talking about this. I'll go a little Weber State over Utah State.
Okay. Jamie, what's your thought process?
You know what? We might be able to see one right off the bat here. I could see William and Mary taking out Charlotte.
Right. I was thinking of that too.
Will Healy, former Austin P coach, still there at Charlotte. But William Mary building a good program under a solid coach, Mike London. I could definitely see that. Just look at everybody. A lot of people are going to say, South Dakota State over Iowa. I think that's a close one. I don't think it happens. I'd love to see it. I don't think it happens. Just looking through, I've got it up here to my left here, just scrolling through some of these games. I mean, if it was last year, I could say Southeastern Louisiana against Florida Atlantic, but I don't see that this year.
Right.
Stony Brook over UMass because it's UMass. Why not?
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. Stony Brook over UMass. You actually picked the two that I was thinking of. So F you, Jamie.
Sorry, buddy.
So we're going to maybe throw some that are maybe not as close to being an upset, but the two I'm going to say is Eastern Kentucky at Bowling Green.
Yeah, I'll look at that one.
I think that is a very winnable game. Eastern Kentucky was solid last year, right? They just missed the playoffs. I think they were a 7-win team. They should be improved this year in the OVC.
Bowling Green is the worst rated team in the FBS, according to SMP Plus.
So I like my pick even more.
That's a good one.
The other one, this one's going to be a little bit weird, especially because we just saw them play, and I picked them to lose anyway. But Stephen F. Austin at Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech was absolute hot garbage last year. Now, they did beat Southeastern Louisiana by like 3, 4, 5 points, something like that. But when I'm looking at some of these games, man, I actually don't see as many upsets as I was hoping I'd see.
Yeah. I might have a sneaky one. Can I flip mine?
My other one was going to be, let's see, what is it? Maine at, aren't they playing someone? Maine at New Mexico? No, they're not beating New Mexico. Maine at Boston College? No, they're not beating you. Yeah, so those are my two. So, Chris, any other ones you want to add?
So this is more of like what you were kind of going down the line of like potential. Like if you're looking for like, is there an opportunity here? North Dakota versus Nebraska. I know typically I would say no, but you got to remember Nebraska's flying back from Ireland. Maybe this is different had they won that game and they're a little overconfident, but like they're not taking a bye week. They played week 0 and then are playing week 1. And North Dakota, I think last year is better than what last year showed. They played the entire good part of the Missouri Valley, mostly on the road. I expect them to kind of maybe jump into the 25 to 20 range again this season. I'm just saying if Nebraska doesn't galvanize around this loss and instead falls apart around this loss with the time change, with everything like that, that's one where I'd say like that could be a sneaky one. Like if you're looking for that surprise one that nobody's really picking every year, that's the one I would say like keep an eye on it as it has potential. Probably won't happen. But
what about
could happen?
I was going to say, what about this one? Richmond at Virginia.
I think Richmond will show well, and I do obviously have Richmond winning the CAA, but Virginia's not a bad team at this point.
Right.
You want to know the funny thing about Richmond? They still suck.
Yeah, you're damn right. There's another CAA team I was looking at, Delaware potentially over Navy on Saturday.
Yeah.
I could maybe see that because if Navy can't get that run game going, Delaware's got a pretty good defense. And if you look down to week 4, a little less confident about this one after yesterday, but Chattanooga over Illinois potentially.
Yeah, I don't like that one, but here's 2 more that I'm going to throw out just to see what you guys think. And then we'll do our prediction of how many. So let's see here. Murray State, who's not a powerhouse, but they're playing Ball State, right? Out of the MAC, Ball State, not
Balls deep, Ball State.
Power. I don't know if I'm picking a win, but I think we could probably see a close game. It's probably going to be a battle. Murray State's getting ready for the Missouri Valley, which is better than the MAC anyway. So, maybe they're hitting the recruiting hard. And then the other one that I was trying to think has maybe a shot, but probably not really.
Eastern Washington or Florida?
Shut your dirty mouth. No. Nichols at Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah.
In-state, typically you get, they're getting the same caliber of players, to be honest, right? Louisiana Monroe is not some murderer who's killing the recruiting. aspect. They're getting just more of the same caliber players as Nichols, Southeastern Louisiana, McNeese. Now, Nichols lost their quarterback, of course, so there may not be that good. We'll have to wait and find out. But yeah, just looking at them, there's not a lot that I like, but those are a few that at least I think have a shot. So, Chris, how many FCS wins are we going to have total?
What's the average? Like 3.2? I'll go 4. I think with the transfer portal, it was you on the Big Kid show last week that said we were all worried the transfer portal would actually be bad for the FCS. I agree with you. I think it's closing the gap. Could you have players that go FBS because they don't want to sign an FCS scholarship that then come back? Mm-hmm. So I think the gap is narrowing between us and the G5. So I'll go if the average is 6, I'll take 7. I think we do one better than the average.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick 6. Before I looked at the whole list of games, I was like, oh, maybe we'll get closer to that, 9, 10 upsets. Last year was 13 or something like that. The average is 6.5. I don't see too many winnable games this year. There's definitely going to be a few where a team wins that's not supposed to, right? That happens yearly. But I see maybe 4 winnable games, which means I'll pick 6.
Yeah, I'm going to be the most pessimistic and go 5.
Yeah. It doesn't look very promising. The good teams aren't playing that many, or if they're playing an FBS, they're typically playing a better FBS than what we've seen in years prior. So sorry, guys. If you're watching this podcast, we don't have a lot of faith in the FCS. That's why we normally have Matthew Frazee, who's like, oofta, they'll be 15. Yes, I'm only going to say oofta all day. Okay, so here is another one by Dustin Perman. A lot of hype about the Jackrabbits offense. What's your take on their defense? Will they get a win this week? Is this who they're playing, Iowa?
It's Iowa. Yep.
Okay. I know, Jamie, you've already had some thoughts on this. So take it away, little buddy.
Yeah, I think the power and all the names on the offense is overshadowing how good the defense is. And I do think it's going to be a strong defense led by Adam Bach, who I believe should be on, if he's not, going to be on the watch list for the Buchanan. They've lost some pieces over the last couple of years, but that's still going to be a solid defense, strong defense. The way the offense plays, the defense just has to be average to above average. But this week, I don't see it. I know North Dakota State went down and beat Iowa in Kinnick Stadium, but I don't see it. I think they're going to play close. They'll be in the game pretty much all game. South Dakota State fans that are traveling to the game, when they take the break, remember to wave to the kids in the Children's Hospital. One of the coolest things in college football these days. Participate in that. But I don't see South Dakota State getting a win this week, even though I would love to see it happen.
Chris, what's your thoughts?
I don't know why everyone's so high on the Jackrabbits offense. They lost their offensive coordinator, but that's just me. I think they probably have other, taking North Dakota State out of every time I say this in reference to the Missouri Valley Conference. Probably the best linebacking core in the Missouri Valley Conference. Now, is that going to help them against Iowa? No. But, yeah, I think it is a program that will, when you have the stars that they've had, Dallas Goddard, Pierre Strong Jr., and then you have Mark Gronowski coming back this year, people are naturally going to look at the offense. It's always been that way at every team ever. Offensive players always get more love. But, yeah, I think they have the second best defense in the Missouri Valley, if not the best, but we'll see how the season plays out.
I'm going to completely take a different take. I actually don't think their defense is that good. Being very honest with you, they have a really good elite run defense. They could not stop anyone throwing the ball to save their life last year. They made Eastern Washington's passing defense look exceptional. They ranked in the bottom 25% in the FCS. They were not good in total defense. There's a reason why they probably didn't make it to Frisco. Their defense was a little lackluster last year, and I don't see it being anything exceptionally better than what it was last year. Their offense, phenomenal, right? They did lose a really good running back, but they have so many pieces on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not worried about their offense at all. But their defense is not that great. Really good running defense. They have a phenomenal running defense, which is going to help them out against Iowa, right? Iowa's a team that tries to win in the trenches. So if you are looking at any type of FBS from the Midwest region on who to play, Iowa's probably a good battle for you, right? They're going to try and rely on the run. They're going to try and rely on the trenches. But South Dakota State's defense is not what everyone is giving them props for. That may be a not sexy take, or everyone thinks I'm pretty high, but they were ranked like 85 in passing defense, not top 50 in total defense, something like that. They weren't this world beater of a defensive team last year. So that's my take. And I do not think they beat Iowa. The Colorado State versus Iowa is a completely different type of program. It would take everything to play a perfect game, and Iowa to play a really bad team to beat them. I don't think Iowa's taking anyone lightly after they lost to North Dakota State. I do not anticipate anyone beating them. So that is my take. So sorry. Do you guys completely disagree with me saying that their defense isn't all that what's cracked up to be? Or did you guys actually go, maybe Kylor has a point and I'm just relying on the narrative?
No, I think you're right as far as the back end. But I mean, in the Valley, they'll be able to stop the run. And that's kind of what those teams do. But yeah, they've got to shore up that back end. I don't think you're wrong there.
If the Valley only ran like they used to, then they wouldn't have had that bad of a passing defense. Right? The Valley's kind of changing. The Big Sky's running more. The Valley's throwing the ball more, which is kind of weird. Outside of your North Dakota State, who still can do everything, right? You got Jason Shelley with Missouri State, Southern Illinois, South Dakota. All these guys, they are throwing the ball more than ever in the Valley, and it makes me a little nervous if I'm a South Dakota State fan. The good news is, at least you still have by far you can even say the most talented roster in the Valley. I don't think that's a big stretch. Maybe people would argue for North Dakota State. Either way, extremely talented rosters, but the Valley's throwing more, and it showed last year. So if you don't clean up your passing defense, you're probably going to have 1 to 2 more losses than you expect, just like last year. That's my thoughts. Okay. So here is another one. Which of the preseason's top 4 and 5 teams is most likely to disappoint? That is from Jeff Blanchett. So I assume he's talking about the whole season, not just week 1. So my opinion is Montana State. I just don't think they have the horses to make it a full season and return to Frisco. And anything less than Frisco is most likely going to be a disappointing season for Montana State fans, right? You've gone to a semifinal and then Frisco in back-to-back years that you played. I think the loss of Daniel Hardy is huge. The loss of Troy Anderson is huge. I think the loss of Lance McCutcheon is huge. And then Afonso is a month-to-month basis. We don't even know if he's playing in the first month. If you don't have that, and I don't know how Tommy Mellott is going to rebound after that injury. Their offensive line, extremely undersized from what I have seen. Doesn't mean they're going to be bad. They can still win in the trenches. Maybe they're that athletic. Maybe they're that physical. Maybe they're that strong. But they look undersized. They lost their 2 best, by far, defensive players. A lot of their line. Who knows if Afonso is ever going to be 100%. And then I don't have a lot of faith in their wide receiver room. And I don't have a lot of faith in maybe I don't want to say I don't have a lot of faith in Tommy Mellott. I have faith. I just don't know if he's what the hype is projecting him to be. So I think Montana State is still going to be extremely good. Still a playoff caliber team. I don't think they're making it past the quarters max, which is going to be a disappointing season for them. Chris.
Yeah. Just to be different than you, I don't necessarily disagree with Montana State take, but just to give another opinion, I'll go with South Dakota State. Mark Ganowski coming back once again, another guy maybe doesn't return from injuries. He's a ghost of his past. They lost to Borey Gibbs, so they don't really have the depth there behind them. Oladokin graduated, so it's without Ganowski, I think they put a lot of their hedging on Ganowski being healthy. If he's healthy, if he gets re-injured, if he has setbacks, if he is just a shell of himself, which happens after injuries like that, we don't know. And they do lose Pierre Strong. They do lose an offensive coordinator and 3 other pieces from their staff. There is that chance that this team takes a step back. Now, do I expect them, like you said, disappoint? For them is to not be in the top 4. So, do I expect them to probably still be a seeded team? Yeah. I could see them probably finishing 8 if, they have a bad year. I maybe just outside. I don't see them falling out of I don't expect, a lot of people had North Dakota at 8 last year. and they fell all the way out of the top 25. I don't see that from South Dakota State, but
roster's too talented.
Yeah, but like if you're talking for them, with their expectations is to mirror North Dakota State, the big bag bullies up north, there is a chance they don't get that this year. Like there is a chance that they fall out of the top 5. So
yeah, cool, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, I would have said Montana State. I think all your points are spot on. Plus, with Tommy Mellott, I don't know if you can have faith or not have faith in him because you've seen it 3 times and he throws a bunch of 50-50 balls. I think you've made that point all year. I'm going to just not completely stick within the question because I'm on the podcast and I can. I'm going to go with number 6, Villanova. I voted them at 10 and I should have put them lower in my opinion. They've lost a lot. They lost a ton on offense. They lost their top 4 tacklers, I believe. Running back, quarterback. I mean, that's a lot to replace. They're still going to be a good team, but they're going to finish 3rd to 5th in the CAA, in my opinion. And that's going to be borderline whether they make the playoffs. So I don't see the preseason hype for Villanova. I saw what they did last year. Trust me, I had to see it right in front of me for a little while, and that was freaking annoying. So good coaching staff, so they're not going to fall way off, but I don't see them being the team that they were last year.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to move in. That was the 7 questions. So thank you guys for the questions. Thanks for letting us debate them a little bit and go back and forth. Now there's still quite a bit of other questions, but these are going to be your quick hits. So Jamie, you got a little video for that one?
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. These are the quick hit questions of the week.
All right. So since I am the host and I get to dictate whatever I want, I'm going to pick each individual one to answer the question. No one else gets any type of rebuttal. So who cares? All right. Are polls needed? This is by Dustin Helton again. Are polls needed until October since they're commonly inaccurate early? Jamie Williams, go as our poll man.
Of course they're needed. They're more accurate in October, sure. But they're needed because they give us something to talk about. They give us something to debate. They let the fans know where a certain subset of people think these teams are going to fall. And then you get to laugh at how wrong we are. So sure, they're needed and they're awesome.
Perfect.
Let's give them something to talk about.
You shut your dirty mouth, Chris. This is not a part of the quick questions. This is not karaoke night. So Bruce Edmondson asks, with 3 good teams leaving the FCS, that's James Madison, the Dukies, Sam Houston State, the wannabe Bearcats, because that's not real. I don't care what you tell me. If it is real or not, it's not real in my mind. And then Jacksonville State, the Gamecocks. Which team steps up into the top spots of their respective conferences? Because each of these 3 teams has kind of dominated their conferences they've been at. So, Chris, I'm letting you take it away.
Oh, boy. Okay. So the WAC probably seems like Stephen F. Austin, right? They seem like the team that's naturally going to replace Sam Houston State. Then you look at Jacksonville State. You got the A-Sun going there, even the old Ohio Valley, if you want to play it that way. I think a lot of teams have been brought in recently. You're looking at, heck, anybody from Texas A&M Commerce could come up and be that team. Or currently, you have Kennesaw State. You have Central Arkansas. So I think those kinds of teams can definitely
pick one.
Make those. Right now, I like Kennesaw State, Central Arkansas long-term over Kennesaw State, which is probably an unpopular. But, yeah, I'll go Central Arkansas maybe takes the reins from Jacksonville State.
Well, Jacksonville State's never dominated the ASUN. They had their one season and they lost. So who's going to replace them for the OVC?
Well, the OVC is merging with the Big South, correct? So
I don't know if it's full merge, right?
Yeah, so now I got to include the old Big South teams. Campbell.
Well, they're a CAA team.
Frick, you're right. They just announced that. I did a whole episode on
Jesus Christ, I should have picked someone else.
There's too much movement in this division at the moment.
Pick someone from the Southland.
Tennessee State. I like
Tennessee State. Oh, I like that
pick.
I like that call.
McNeese.
Yeah, I think McNeese could come back. I mean, McNeese is a power that's just been down. They could.
So Tennessee State, McNeese. Who's the CAA new power?
New Hampshire.
No. The old power. Okay, I like it. Doesn't matter, Jamie. So here's another one from Grant Key on Twitter about Mercer. And he wants all of us to answer. So we'll do very quick rebuttals on this one. But he specifically said, what do you all think about the Mercer after week 0? I'll go first. We don't really know too much about Mercer until the last half of their schedule, right? Morehead State is not a program to lean your head on in terms of winning. But that being said, Mercer looked so dang good on all sides of the ball. I said this to Kevin Marshall, FCS, fans radio, or FCS Nation radio. I said Mercer looks like a playoff caliber team. They just missed out last year. They look better this year. But again, it is Morehead State. So it's more of a let's wait a little bit because the back half of their schedule is so much more brutal than the front half. And the SoCon's weird. You can have really competitive games. So I need to see a little bit more. But that being said, yeah, Mercer looked absolutely fantastic. They look like a playoff team as long as they can keep it going on all sides of the ball. But they look great. Jamie.
Yeah, I had Mercer as a playoff team, and I had them borderline winning the SoCon potential. And then I saw that Fred Davis wasn't on the roster. It turned out he is not going to play this year for personal reasons. But I was encouraged. The 2 transfers they brought in, Austin Douglas from JMU, by the way, his first 2 carries, 65 and 63, both for touchdowns. Then they brought in Fred Jackson, not Fred Jackson that used to play for the Bills, but Fred Jackson that used to play for Coastal Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And he scored as well. So I'm more encouraged by the run game and even more so the way that Fred Payton played. This is a playoff team. I'm saying it right now. This is a playoff team. If they win the SoCon, I won't be surprised. I've got a lot of surprises in the SoCon. Mercer's making the playoffs for the first time this year. Book it.
Yep, Chris, quick hitter.
I was a year early on Mercer. I picked them as a surprise team last year. Nothing that happened last year changed that. If anything, it reiterated. I expect them to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they look good. Okay. Joshua Hoffman, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you feel for Jacksonville State fans for not getting anything out of this season? No playoffs, no bowls. Only thing is a conference championship, I guess. I'll take this one. I feel no bad. That's not even good English. I am a negative 10 out of a scale of 1 through 10. They're going to the FBS. They're happy. They beat a team with more scholarships, a team who hasn't been that great in the last 15 years, right? Sure, a lot of hype, but they just beat a team who hasn't had a playoff win in a very long time. And you have 20 extra scholarships. You're an FBS transitioning program right now. I feel zero bad for any type of a team that is going to leave the FCS and go to the FBS. So that is my answer. I don't care what any one of you guys say, but I'm pretty sure you're on par with me. Who we don't care. You're the grass is greener on the other side. Keep mowing it. Okay. That's all I'll say.
Hashtag keep mowing it.
Keep mowing. Jacob Martinez. I'm going to send this one to you, Chris. How do y'all view the second SWAC team this year? So that's part 1, but my guess is he's just referring to FAMU. So FAMU's offense looks like it's taken a step up despite all the ineligible players. We talked about this. With 3 playoff regulars gone, will FAMU, JSU make the playoffs after last year?
You better go FAMU before you get ripped by all the fans.
Florida, and M. That's how I say it.
There you go.
Because you go Florida.
Florida, Flow Rider. Chris, so kind of talk about all those 3-part questions. Do you think FAMU is the second best team in the SWAC? Let's just answer that one.
No.
Who do you think is the second best team in the SWAC?
I think Grambling's going to have a big bounce up year.
Yeah.
And Southern also made a really good hire. So I could see them moving up. I know that.
Stop sucking up to Debbie.
Not even sucking up to Debbie. I did a whole ranking. I deep dive all the coaching new hires. I really like what Grambling's building. So I'll go Grambling. And then, like we said, Alabama State looked good this weekend.
Yeah.
Florida,
so then,
I'm not saying Florida A&M looked bad. We all agree they look good. But, I think their issue is, as terms of, could they make the playoffs? The way they performed in the playoffs last year are going to hurt them in terms of making the playoffs this year.
Well, then the last question, will a SWAC team, because of course champion goes to Celebration Bowl, will the second place SWAC team make the playoffs?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
so you answered.
I think
you
with
just
the
don't think it's
opening spaces. Yeah, there are 3 teams that we have to replace that are usually in the playoffs. So, like, there is going to be that spot. They made it last year while all three of those teams could make it. So why not?
Cool. Okay. Jamie Williams, this is from Gordon Gecko. What will be the narrative for both teams if NDSU falls to A&T?
The narrative will be, wake up, NC A&T fans. You were dreaming. Not going to happen. Bison by however many they want.
Okay. So, but what will if it first somehow happened, what would the narrative be from NDSU fans?
They would. They probably would go into hibernation and go ice fishing for the rest of the year until Frisco, and then they would all drive down there and win another national championship. For A&T, the narrative would be, okay, here we go. Going to win the Big South. Going to make some noise.
Yeah, I think the narrative's going to end up being, if for some reason that happens, NDSU is going to say, their fans are going to say, just like what they do with SDSU every single year, by far the second best team. You know, if they played in Frisco, they would have beat everyone, but unfortunately they had to play one of us when it just doesn't work out that way. But that's, just another thing. Okay, a little trolling aside. If we're all going to answer this will be a quick one from Brandon Anderson. Of course, he's asked this. If your team was a state fair, what would it be? Let's start with Chris being a vandal.
So if my team was a state fair food,
yep,
some sort of potato thing.
All right, I was going with the cannibal route. So that,
although we are the P in Moscow is actually, I guess, a different part of the state. So Idaho State would be potatoes. That's where all the Idaho or the potatoes get grown, is Southeast Idaho. We are the pea and lentil capital of the entire world, the Palouse. So I guess we'd have like a really good pea lentil soup.
Solid, sexy. Okay.
Everybody wants soup in the middle of August. I know. But...
Okay, Dukes fan, what would be yours?
Probably the funnel cake, because we're the best.
Funnel cakes because you're the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't say why, because then I have to put it in a jar.
Gotcha. Now, what about your FCS team? Because you have an FCS team. Have you picked one yet?
No, I've got anybody that sends me a shirt. That's my FCS team. So today I got Central Arkansas. So they're like a fried pork chop, pretty delicious, but kind of underrated overall. So that's where
awesome.
I'm gonna go there.
We probably have to be like a turkey leg, even though eating a eagle is very off limits. Pretty sure that's against the law. So maybe a slightly small turkey leg is what we would be doing. Yeah, that's about all I have. All right, next question from Drew Stevens. We're gonna crank through some of these. Which under 500 team in 2021 do you expect to have a breakout season going above 500? Jamie Williams, you got an answer?
Tennessee State. Chris has already talked about it earlier. Eddie George is building something there. They got a really good opportunity to put their name out there real fast if they can knock off Eastern Washington. We'll see if that happens. But, yeah, Tennessee State came to mind. A lot of teams right around 500 that I could have picked from, but he said under, so I'm going to go Tennessee State. They're going to make the playoffs potentially.
Yeah, I think they can win the OVC this year. They got a lot of talent. So speaking of Tennessee State, I'm going to send this one to you, Chris. Jason Plotkin, he asks, what do we think about Eddie George telling his son that he is not to consider Jackson State as a football destination? Is this more just for PR, or do we actually think his son would have considered Jackson State over daddy's team at Tennessee State?
The latter, like this is, former. It's what do you want him to say, right? Like, yeah, I know I want my son to go play for basically I don't know if these are his words or even if they're actually him, but I think most people would view it. The biggest competition for him is being the institution for HBCU football. Like, they already are the team that doesn't play in an HBCU conference. They have the ability to start playing I know NC A&T now too, but like they've been doing it longer. They have the ability to be that HBCU playoff team. So like, yeah, he's seeing what Neon Dion ain't shy talking lip to anybody, right? Like, he'll throw it down. So I think Eddie George is doing a little bit of his own. Like, hey, recruits, I got a mouthpiece too, and I'm willing to use it. No, my son ain't playing at no Jackson State, even if it is Deion Sanders.
Yeah, I love it. Gotta love the banter between coaches, even if it's just PR or whatever. I think it's great. Now, this last question is about banter, and I'm going to give it to Chris and I because we both think it's just hilarious. So Evan Wilson asks, with all the chatter and excitement online over the first weekend of college football, Will there be any better social media breakout moment than the FCS than the expert level of trolling of FBS Nebraska by the Big Sky Twitter account? If you guys are not aware, I forgot who posted it, but someone said Nebraska after their loss looks like they're going to be going to the Big Sky. And the Big Sky official Twitter account posted, "Nah, we good."
Yeah, not even the conference or the football account. The actual conference account that represents all sports, all employees, all institutions, whether you are like a golf member like what Hartford is or whatever.
Yeah.
We're representing you and we're saying, "No, we good." It was a absolute masterclass. And it goes to show why they've made 2 really good hires in their social media department at the Big Sky Conference, Bryson and Tyson. And it goes to show why on Skull Spark they are consistently ranked above all the G5 and occasionally a P5 in engagement. The social media game in the last 18 months of the Big Sky, I mean, it's always fire. It's
second to none in the FCS.
They do a fantastic job on social media.
But did you expect this type of a troll job?
No. And I wonder, because Commissioner Tom Wisterchill was at Nevada, like watching the ISU play week 0, I wonder if he's in office if that tweet gets sent.
Oh, I think so. I think
absolutely.
I think Tom probably hit send. I'm saying it. This is Tom.
That might be one where he goes, "I don't know if we should do that. Like, do we want to take shots in Nebraska?" As a guy who is from, like, he did AD in the Midwest and did work for Learfield, don't know his future career aspirations, might be a little hesitant of his conference doing this. But then when he sees the way it goes viral, and it is literally the backdrop to the Athletics post about how Nebraska is probably firing Frost, is Big Sky, nah, we good. Like, social media gold. And that's why you pay good people. He brought in good people who aren't even necessarily, one of them's from the region, one of them's not, to run your social media because they're good at what they do. Big Sky has done such good jobs of hiring everybody that is their digital content creation, from Mary Louise Cook to Bryson and Tyson. Like, they kill it. And I expect nothing less from those guys. They are by far the best run social media account in the FCS.
Did you see the second part to that is
about
how many does the Big Sky have with all their trophies? And then they're like, we have 6, the last coming in 2010, which is more recent than 97. Total body bag.
I loved it. I like that one. My one thing would be like, Ryan Foley said this I think it was Thorny in the Big Sky Podcast Network chat. He was like, "Quit while you're ahead." It is good, but if you really think of that, we're talking about one team showcasing their 5 national titles and a conference bragging about only having 6. Because then it's like they could be like, well, the Big Ten has what, like 30? But it's like, it's still funny. Gold. It didn't turn the tide. The internet still loved it and doubled down on the guys. That one was a little bit more risky, in my opinion, of like, falling flat on your face while you were ahead. But it didn't. High risk, high reward. It paid off, and people loved it just as much.
Yep, we loved it. So good job, Big Sky. Keep doing that type of stuff. If Ball State wins, I hope everyone starts referring everyone to the Big Sky, and I hope you keep rejecting them.
This is the matchup you should be paying attention to. This is the FCS Fans Nation Game of the Week.
All right, so we got number 9, the Salukis, right up here. Jeremiah Rash, thank you still for the helmet. I still think this is one of the greatest helmets in the not the Big Sky, but the FCS. Outside of maybe the UCA Bears throwback and even the Grumpy Joe, those are all some of the best. But this one looks just so clean. The colors, the cute dog, I love it. But the game of the week, we got number 9 Southern Illinois at number 14 Incarnate Word on Saturday. 6 Central Time, 7 Eastern, whatever you want to do, wherever you're at. Let's get our game predictions, the score, who's going to win. I'm going to start with Chris Hammond since he's the newbie. Then I'll go me, and we'll end with Jamie, the expert.
So I'm actually very high on Southern Illinois. I actually had them at my 5 spot. My 4 spot in my preseason poll. So for me, they're a top 4 team. I actually don't agree with it necessarily as a game of a week. I think Southern Illinois probably runs away with this one, but it's week 1. There's not a ton of, it's a lot of D2 and FBS matchups. So it is still a good one, but I think the Salukis are going to beat Incarnate Word, because Incarnate Word, for those of you that watch our shorts, was my most overrated pick of the year. They lost Cameron Ward. They lost their coach. I don't know how they're ranked in the top 15, let alone the top 25. I think this might be like, don't overreact to week 1 results. This might be one where we properly react. If Incarnate Word gets spanked, we're like, oh yeah, maybe we forgot they lost like 2 of their most important people in program history, and that this isn't that team anymore.
We're going to learn a lot during this game. For one, Incarnate Word does not have a history of reloading at quarterback, and they lost arguably the quarterback who had the greatest start to a career in FCS history. I mean, he was a freshman, already had 7,000 yards, 70 touchdowns, something like that. If he could have stayed at Incarnate Word, I would have bet my house that he would have broke every single career record for a QB. But he went to Washington State, and his coach went with him. So, yes, they got the Nichols quarterback, right? I believe they got the Nichols quarterback, Lindsey Scott, who some people are really high on. I think he's okay. Definitely, it's a better quarterback than probably what you had on your roster. But I do not think he's a Cameron Ward level of a quarterback, but he's at least solid. So this will be a good prove-it game. Is Southern Illinois, are they continuing to year after year get better? Right? We saw a little bit of regression last year from probably what we thought we would have seen in the spring. We saw a little regression, but are they back? Are they a top 5 team? Are they continuing to build? Or is Incarnate Word, can they rebuild after the Ward years? I'm not sure. I'm going to go with Southern Illinois probably by 18 points or so. I'm kind of leaning more towards Chris. Probably Incarnate Word is not a top 15 team, but they have a way to prove it. And if they do somehow get the upset, all the doubt's gone. Lindsey Scott is going to be a good real deal, and Incarnate Word may give a run for the WAC because they're in the WAC this year or still Southland.
Nope. They went back to the Southland.
Yeah, they bounced like 2 weeks before media days or something like that.
Yep.
And Lamar did it after that. So
yep. So that's my pick. Jamie, the expert, what you thinking about the game?
Yeah, I'm going to make it a clean sweep. I'm looking forward also to Missouri State and Central Arkansas, the Battle of the Bears. That was a great game last year. But Southern Illinois Incarnate Word, I don't know that, like you both said, I think that's at least a 2-score game in Southern Illinois' favor. If Incarnate Word gets it done, Sam Herder can laugh at all of us because he's been a little bit higher on the Incarnate Word than the rest of us. But I think Southern Illinois is building something, heading the right direction. Nick Baker's an excellent coach, or he's the quarterback, and I just forgot the coach's name because I blanked.
Mm-hmm. Hill?
Yeah, it's Hill. So don't edit that out. I screwed up. My bad. But yeah, good team, heading the right direction. Southern Illinois by at least 14.
Awesome. Okay, so we are doing a clean sweep. So that brings us to the very end of our show. Before we do our closing segments, Chris, thank you for joining. Do you have any last words, any last remarks?
No, I'm just glad to be on the Big Kid Show. Excited for football to be back. I do a little kid show. It's basically this, but like I find your guys' best topics each week and then just spend like more time on them. So it's less fan involved. So thank you guys all that participate because you feed me content for later in my show. Check it out if you want to see deep dives and other topics. And then obviously Kylor, myself, and Alex Boatman have kind of started a new Big Sky specific thing. So if you're a Big Sky person, you can check that out. But thanks for having me on. I'm always glad to be the rotational option here because it's always fun to talk to 2 of the smartest, biggest brains in the FCS. I'm just glad that we have, the network that we have and the followers that we have and the Facebook users that we have. It's really awesome.
Absolutely. Now, before we do our last little closing, Jamie, do you have anything you want to add? Any remarks?
Matt, we missed you. You saw how a little disheveled it was when you're trying to put the banners up and all this, but you'll be back.
Better.
I mean, we'll see. But I mean, I missed our buddy. Oofda. You two guys, go get some warm tea. You've been on podcast for 6-7 hours today. Get some tea, get some sleep. Get ready for Thursday because that's when there's a lot of games. Let's go, boys.
Perfect. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Friday night FCS. We have like 8 games going Friday night. So
awesome.
People can tune in if they want a little live show we'll be watching a little halftime breaks.
Perfect. So before I sign off, for one, I just want to say thank you for everyone for their questions. If we did not answer a question, guess what? This show is in the regular season now. This whole show is predicated on you submitting questions to us. So if we didn't answer any of them, I'm sorry. Of course, we've already been over an hour. We only have an hour to do this show. So please submit some next week, and we will do our best to get it involved in the actual agenda. Other than that, thank you. Please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating if you like us on our YouTube page. We're really trying to grow that in our YouTube network. We have some really amazing podcasts that we're shoveling out. So he's on the Chris show, the FCS Friday nights. Him and I are joining with Alex Boatman for Up North. Then we also have South Dakota State's the Jackrabbit Illustrated. We have Cocky Nation. We have the Wax Sun. We have Fight On Montana. We have the Eagles Power Hour. Am I missing anyone? If I am, I'm sorry, but just subscribe to our YouTube page. You can find all the podcasts that you're looking for, and we're going to continue to roll out more. Give it a few more months. We're going to find some. We're going to vet some, audit them, and hopefully get a few more to join the network. We want to be the one YouTube page that has a little bit of everything for everyone. So if you don't like our content, guess what? Who cares? Jump on our network and find content you like. There's going to be one that you like. But thank you guys. I hope you have a great rest of the day. It was an amazing week 0. Week 1 is on the books. Also, thank you, Mr. Martinez, for running the pick'em this year. The winner of that challenge. So if you have not done anything, Jacob Martinez, every single week he's doing a pick'em challenge. The winner of that is going to get some gear, some swag. I mean, from your favorite team or whatever. The admins, we're going to be paying for that. But also, Jacob, you want a flag? I'm going to buy you a flag for personally taking this over because we really do appreciate it. So thank you guys. And other than that, it's done, but football's back. Boom.
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 Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google, or even YouTube. And make sure to follow our FCS Fans Nation social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football. Boom.